The emergency beacon screamed across every channel in the known galaxy. 3 more worlds had gone silent in the past week, consumed by the hive. Ambassador Trell watched the holographic display flicker with red zones spreading like infection across the star map. His crystalline body refracted the dim light of the conference chamber, casting fractured rainbows on the walls. Around the circular table, representatives from 23 species shifted uncomfortably. The Murini delegation bubbled anxious patterns in their water-filled containment suits. The rash warriors clicked their mandibles in frustration. Everyone knew the truth that nobody wanted to speak aloud. They were losing this war. The hive consumed Pelton Colony in 18 hours, Trell said, his voice resonating through his mineral structure. For million souls. Gone. Our defensive strategy is failing. A Vorentine council member raised one of her 6 arms. We cannot fight them directly. They adapt too quickly. They learn from every encounter. Then we need something they have never encountered before, said YSS, a rash commander whose scarred carapace told stories of too many battles. Something unpredictable. Silence fell over the chamber. They had thrown every weapon, every strategy, every technological advantage at the hive. Nothing worked for long. The swarm simply evolved and kept coming. From the back of the room, a small voice interrupted the despair. What about the Deathworld species? Everyone turned to look at Pell, a young Murini archivist who rarely spoke during official sessions. His translator box crackled as he continued. The Forbidden Zone. The rumors. I have been studying old survey data. Trell's internal structure dimmed with skepticism. You speak of myths. Ghost stories told by fringe explorers. Perhaps, Pell said, moving forward on his liquid locomotion system. But I found something. Encrypted transmissions from a quarantined solar system. Mathematical sequences. Artificial satellites. Signs of industrial civilization. In a Class 12 hazard zone, another delegate scoffed. Impossible. Nothing intelligent survives those conditions. Pell activated his portable display. Data streams filled the air between them. The system is called Sol. The 3rd planet registers as extraordinarily hostile. Extreme weather patterns. Tectonic instability. Dangerous solar radiation. Gravity at the upper limit of survivability. And yet, these transmissions suggest someone lives there. Someone who built machines and reached into space despite all of it. Trell examined the data carefully. This could be automated systems, remnants of a dead civilization. The transmissions are recent, Pell insisted, within the last 50 cycles. And they are complex. Music, mathematical proofs, scientific data. This is not random noise. YSS leaned forward, his compound eyes gleaming. If something intelligent survived on a Class 12 world, it would be unlike anything we know. Hardened by constant danger, adapted to extreme conditions. Or it would be savage, another voice countered. Violent, potentially more dangerous than the hive itself. The chamber erupted in debate. Some argued that investigating was too risky. Others claimed desperation justified any option. Trell listened to both sides, his analytical mind processing probabilities. Finally, he raised his central limb for silence. We will send a scout expedition. Small. Fast. If these beings exist, we will make contact. If they are hostile, we retreat immediately. If they are willing and capable, we extend an invitation to join our coalition. And if they're just another dying species, someone asked, then we will have wasted only time, Trell replied, which we are losing anyway. The vote passed by narrow margin. 3 ships would go. Pell volunteered immediately, driven by curiosity that transcended his natural caution. YSS joined as military escort, arguing that if these deathworlders were real, they would respect strength. A Vorentine pilot named Siren completed the crew, her navigational skills unmatched. They departed from Meridian Cross Station 2 days later. The journey toward the Forbidden Sector took weeks. As they traveled, Pell studied every fragment of data about the Sol system. He found references in ancient databases, Warnings from the original survey teams. Point one report caught his attention. A probe had been sent into soul space 400 cycles ago. It never returned, but it transmitted one final message before disappearing. Detected primitive radio signals. Monitoring. Warning. Indigenous species appears to be in constant state of warfare. Recommend complete quarantine. Warfare. Constant warfare. What kind of species fought itself while living on a death world? What kind of evolution produced that combination? When they finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Sol system, their sensors immediately overloaded with contacts. The system was full of artificial objects, thousands of satellites, debris fields from old collisions, space stations in orbit around multiple planets. This was no primitive species. By the ancients, Siren whispered, they filled their entire system with technology. Then the proximity alarm shrieked. 3 vessels approached at high velocity, angular and aggressive in design. They bristled with weapon ports and moved with predatory grace. Pell activated the Universal Greeting Protocol, broadcasting mathematical sequences and peaceful intentions across all frequencies. For long moments, nothing happened. The alien ships circled them like predators evaluating prey. Then a response came. Not in any known language, but in mathematics. Prime numbers. Fibonacci sequences. The building blocks of rational communication. Contact had been made. Over the next several hours, they established basic language protocols. The aliens called themselves humans. They invited the expedition to their homeworld for face-to-face meeting. As their ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Pell watched in amazement. The planet was beautiful and terrifying. Massive oceans, violent storms, mountains that scraped the sky, and everywhere, signs of human presence. Cities that sprawled for hundreds of kilometers, lights that turned night into day. They landed at a facility called Kennedy Memorial Spaceport. When the airlock opened, Pell saw humans for the first time. They were bipedal and bilaterally symmetrical, similar to many species. But something about them seemed wrong. They moved with coiled energy. Their eyes tracked everything. Even at rest, they appeared ready to react to danger. Point one human stepped forward, wearing a military uniform decorated with symbols Pell did not recognize. She smiled, showing flat teeth designed for grinding both plant and meat matter. An omnivore, a predator and survivor combined. Welcome to Earth, she said through their translator. I am Captain Nadia Reeves. I understand you are at war. Tell us about your enemy. Maybe we can help. Pell noticed something in her voice. Not fear the hive. Anticipation, as if she had been waiting for this war to find them. For the first time since the crisis began, Pell felt something strange bloom in his consciousness. It took him a moment to identify the emotion. Hope. The conference room smelled wrong to Pell. Not bad, exactly, but intense. Humans apparently like their environments warmer and richer in oxygen than most civilized species. Sitting across from Captain Reeves and 2 other human officers, Pell felt his survival instincts whispering warnings his rational mind tried to ignore. General Kwame Osei was a large human with dark skin and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they observed. Admiral Lu Feng appeared older, with lines marking her face that humans developed with age. Both carried themselves with the same coiled readiness Pell had noticed in every human he encountered. Show us what we face, Reeves said simply. YSS activated the holographic display. The hive appeared in 3-dimensional detail. Biological ships that pulsed with unnatural life. Swarm patterns that defied conventional tactics. Footage of planets being consumed. Their resources converted into more hive mass. The humans watched without visible emotion. When the presentation ended, Osei leaned back in his chair. Invasive species, he said. Exponential reproduction. Hive intelligence. Rapid adaptation. We have dealt with similar problems on Earth. Nothing like this, YSS said, his translator clicking. The hive has consumed 47 worlds. Killed billions. Our best weapons slow them briefly before they adapt. How do you fight them? Lu Feng asked. Defensive positions. Evacuation when possible. delaying actions to buy time for civilian retreat. The three humans exchanged glances. Something passed between them, some shared understanding that excluded the aliens in the room. "You are fighting to lose slowly," Reeves said. It was not a question. Trell, who had joined them via a holographic link from Meridian Cross, responded with crystalline dignity. "We fight to preserve life, to save what we can." "And how is that working?" Osei asked. Silence answered him. Lu Feng stood and walked to the holographic display. She manipulated the controls, running the hive footage backward and forward. "They adapt to your weapons. They learn your tactics. But adaptation requires survival. Learning requires time." She turned to face them. "You need to kill them faster than they can learn." "Impossible," YSS said. "We have tried. Overwhelming force. They simply divide and disperse." "Then you need different force," Reeves said. "Humans have been fighting our entire existence. We know a few things about war." Pell finally found his voice. "Your planet. The survey reports said you were in constant warfare. Is that true?" The humans did not look ashamed. Osei nodded. "For most of our history, yes. We fought each other over territory, resources, ideology, religion. We built weapons that could destroy our entire world. We came very close to extinction several times." "Why?" Pell asked. "Why did you not find peace?" "We did," Lu Feng said. "Eventually, when we finally looked up and saw the stars, we realized we had bigger things to worry about than our differences. We unified, but we did not forget how to fight. We just learned who the real enemies were." Reeves activated her personal display. New images filled the room. Human warships, hundreds of them. Weapons testing. Marines training in environments that made Pell's survival instinct scream. Soldiers practicing combat in zero gravity, in toxic atmospheres, in conditions that would kill most species instantly. "We have been watching the galaxy for 32 years, Reeves said. "Since we developed faster-than-light observation technology. We saw your civilizations. We saw the hive appear. We knew contact was inevitable, so we prepared." "Prepared for what?" Trell asked. "For this conversation," Osei said. "Earth has 40 million active military personnel. We have 3,000 combat-ready vessels. We have weapons you have never imagined because we designed them to fight ourselves. And now we offer them to you." The number stunned Pell into silence. 40 million soldiers. For one planet. The entire Galactic Coalition had perhaps 10 million combat personnel across 23 species. "Why?" YSS asked. "Why would you fight for us? You owe us nothing." Reeves smiled again, that predator expression that showed too many teeth. "Because the hive will not stop at your territory. Eventually, they will reach Earth. We would rather fight them on your front lines than in our home system. And because humanity has a rule, we do not abandon allies." "We are not your allies," Trell said carefully. "We have just met." "Not yet," Lu Feng agreed. "But you will be." Over the next week, the human government opened their files to the expedition. Pell spent days reviewing their military history, their tactical databases, their psychological profiles. What he found both fascinated and terrified him. Humans were persistence hunters. They did not give up. They did not surrender. They would pursue prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This instinct had translated into military doctrine. Never retreat. Never surrender. Hold the line regardless of cost. Their medicine reflected their Deathworld origin. They could survive injuries that would kill most species. Lose blood and keep fighting. Break bones and continue moving. Their pain tolerance was extraordinary because pain on Earth meant little. Survival required pushing through it. They formed pack bonds instantly. Soldiers would die for squad mates they had known for weeks. This loyalty extended beyond their own species. Humans adopted alien animals as companions. They formed emotional attachments to anything that showed the slightest personality. Most disturbing to Pell was their attitude toward death. Humans knew they would die, accepted it, planned for it. They would sacrifice themselves without hesitation if it served a greater purpose. This was not suicidal. It was tactical. One death to save many was mathematics they calculated coldly. When the expedition prepared to return to Meridian Cross, Reeves handed Pell a data chip. Our formal proposal, she said. Review it with your assembly. But know this. The hive is coming for everyone. You can face them alone and die slowly, or face them with us and have a chance. Your choice. Pell took the chip. You truly believe you can defeat them? Reeves looked him directly in the eyes. In human culture, direct eye contact signified honesty and challenge. I believe we will fight them with everything we have. I believe we will never stop fighting. And I believe that matters more than technology or numbers. The hive adapts to weapons, but can they adapt to species that refuse to quit? The journey back to Meridian Cross took 3 weeks. Pell spent every moment analyzing the human proposal, their tactical assessments, their readiness reports, their casualty projections. The last item made him pause. Humans expected to lose 30 to 40% of their forces in the first major engagement. They had included this in their planning. Acceptable losses. What kind of species calculated death so calmly? When they arrived at Meridian Cross, the station was in chaos. 2 more worlds had fallen. The hive was accelerating its advance. The assembly convened immediately. Pell presented his findings, showed them human capabilities, explained their offer. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued humans were too dangerous to trust. Others claimed they had no choice. Finally, Trell called for a vote. The measure passed. Humanity would be invited to join the war. Pell transmitted the message to Earth. The response came within minutes. First fleet departs in 72 hours. See you on the front lines. Reeves out. 3 days later, 20 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at Meridian Cross. They moved in formation, weapons powered but not targeting. Professional. Disciplined. Ready. Pell watched from the observation deck as they approached. Around him, hundreds of aliens gathered to witness the arrival. The deathworlders were no longer rumor. They were here. They were real. They were armed. And the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet hung in space like predators at rest. Pell floated near the observation window, watching technicians scramble to accommodate the newcomers. Meridian Cross had never hosted a military force this large. The station groaned under the strain of 20 warships drawing power and requesting docking permits. General Osei materialized beside him, using one of the human transport pods. The general wore his dress uniform, covered in symbols and colors Pell still did not fully understand. Medals, Riza called them. Recognition for actions in combat. Impressive station, Osei said, looking around the Grand Hall. Different from our designs. More artistic. Pell rippled his agreement. We build for beauty and function. You build for survival. We build for war. EC corrected gently. There's a difference. The formal reception began an hour later. Ambassador Trell had organized a gathering in the Central Forum where species from across the coalition could meet the humans. Pell noticed immediately how the crowd reacted. Some pressed forward with curiosity. Others maintained careful distance. Fear and fascination mixed in equal measure. Admiral Lu Feng addressed the assembly, her words translated into 43 languages simultaneously. Humanity thanks the Galactic Coalition for this invitation. We come not as saviors, but as partners. Your fight is now our fight. Your survival is now our concern. Polite applause followed. Then the questions began that a Murini engineer asked about human shield technology. Lu Feng admitted it was inferior to galactic standards, but explained humans compensated with armor plating and redundant systems. If one system fails, we have backup. If that fails, we have backup for the backup. We call it defense in depth. A Vorentine strategist questioned human tactical doctrine. Osei projected battle simulations. The aliens watched in stunned silence as human forces accepted casualties that would cause any rational commander to retreat, then exploited the chaos their sacrifice created. We trade losses for position, EC explained. Sometimes the only way forward is through. YSS asked the question Pell knew was coming. What if you lose? What if the hive destroys your fleet? Captain Reeves, standing at the edge of the forum, answered before the senior officers could. Then Earth sends another fleet. And another. And another. until we win or we run out of humans. She paused. We will run out of hive first. The certainty in her voice silenced the room. Over the following days, humans integrated into station life with unsettling efficiency. They learned alien languages with remarkable speed. They adapted to different gravities and atmospheres using mechanical suits. They studied galactic technology like students desperate for knowledge, but their presence changed everything. Pell noticed it first in the markets. Human food vendors appeared, selling dishes so heavily spiced that most species could only tolerate tiny portions. Yet aliens lined up to try them, drawn by curiosity and the human tendency to share everything enthusiastically. Human music played in recreational areas. It was chaotic compared to the mathematical harmonies most species preferred, all rhythm and emotion and noise. Yet Pell found himself listening, finding patterns in the apparent disorder. Humans jogged through the corridors for exercise, their need for constant physical activity baffling to species who conserved energy by instinct. They lifted weights in improvised gyms. They practiced combat techniques that looked like formalized violence. Pell observed a training session where human marines taught rash warriors hand-to-hand combat. The rash were natural fighters, evolved from predatory insects. But they fought with instinct. Humans fought with technique, every movement calculated and practiced. You telegraph your strikes. A human sergeant told a rash soldier, twice her size, "I can see your intention before you move. Fight deceptive. Make them guess." The rash warrior tried again. Failed again. The sergeant did not show frustration. She demonstrated the movement slowly, breaking it into components. Humans were teachers as much as warriors in the command center, human tactical officers worked alongside Vorntine strategists. Pell watched them debate hive movements and defensive positions. The Vorntine preferred elegant solutions, minimal resource expenditure, maximum efficiency. The humans suggested aggressive alternatives. "We should garrison Tethys Prime," suggested a Vorntine commander. "It is the next logical target. They will expect that," countered a human colonel. "We should appear to garrison it while hiding our main force in the asteroid field. When the hive commits, we hit them from behind. That requires dividing our forces." "Tactically unsound. Only if you fight fair," the colonel replied. "The hive does not fight fair. Neither should we." Trell confided his concerns to Pell privately. "They change how others think. The rash are becoming more aggressive. The Murini are taking risks. Even my own people are questioning conservative strategies." "Is that bad?" Pell asked. "I do not know," Trell admitted, "but it is irreversible. We invited wolves into our home. They will not become sheep to make us comfortable." The intelligence reports arrived on the 13th day. The hive was massing forces near the Kelvin Drift. Projections indicated their target was Tethys Prime, a colony world with 2 million inhabitants. The attack would come within the week. The coalition fleet mobilized immediately. 40 ships total, 20 human vessels, and 20 from the various coalition species. General EC took overall command with Trell as strategic advisor. Pell requested permission to join the fleet as an observer. Trell tried to refuse, but Pell insisted. "I must witness this. For the historical record. Someone needs to document what happens when deathworlders go to war." Permission was granted. Pell boarded the human destroyer Defiant under Captain Reeves. The ship was smaller than coalition vessels, but packed with weapons. Every surface served a purpose. No decoration, no comfort, pure function. Reeves gave him a tour. She showed him the Marine barracks where soldiers maintained their weapons. The medical bay equipped for extreme trauma. The magazines filled with missiles and kinetic rounds. The reactor that could be overloaded and detonated if necessary. "If necessary?" Pell asked. "Last resort," Reeves said. "If we are boarded and overrun, we deny the enemy our ship. We detonate the reactor and take them with us. You would kill yourselves. We would kill the enemy," Reeves corrected. "Our deaths would be secondary." That night, Pell could not enter rest cycle. He floated in his assigned quarters, reviewing everything he had learned about humans. Their history of warfare. Their capacity for sacrifice. Their absolute refusal to surrender. Tomorrow they would face the hive. Tomorrow the galaxy would learn if human ferocity could match alien hunger. Pell accessed the station database and began a new file. He titled it the Deathworlder Doctrine, Humanity's First War. Whatever happened at Tethys Prime, someone needed to record it. The fleet departed Meridian Cross in tight formation. Pell watched the station shrink behind them, the lights dimming until they disappeared into the darkness between stars. Around him, human crew members performed final equipment checks. They moved with calm efficiency. No fear, no hesitation. They had trained for this their entire lives. In the command center, Reeves addressed her crew over the intercom. All hands, this is the captain. We are heading into combat against an enemy that has never faced humanity. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know what we are willing to sacrifice. Today, we show them. Today, we introduce the galaxy to the species that refuse to die on the deadliest world ever surveyed. Today, Earth goes to war. Make it count. The crew responded with a sound Pell had learned was called a war cry. A roar of voices that echoed through the corridors. Primitive, savage, absolutely terrifying. Pell realized something in that moment. The Hive had consumed 47 worlds. They had faced every weapon the galaxy could produce, but they had never faced spite. They had never faced stubbornness. They had never faced a species that viewed extinction as personally insulting. The Hive was about to learn a new emotion, fear. The Hive arrived early, 3 days before projections predicted. The swarm dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a plague made physical, blotting out the stars around Tethys Prime. Pell watched from the Defiance observation deck as sensors counted enemy vessels. 100, 200, 500. The numbers kept climbing. Contact in 90 seconds, announced the tactical officer. Her voice remained steady despite the overwhelming odds that Pell's survival instincts screamed at him to flee. Every rational calculation said this battle was unwinnable. The Hive outnumbered them 25-1. Retreat was the only logical option, but humans did not retreat. All ships, this is General EC. Exécutez Formation Delta. Human vessels forward screen. Coalition forces support position. Fire on my mark. The human warships surged ahead of the defensive line. 20 vessels against 500. Insanity. Reeves walked onto the bridge, her expression calm. Mr. Harris, bring us to attack speed. Route all available power to forward guns and structural integrity fields. Ma'am, that will leave aft shields at minimum. We are not planning to show them our backs, are we? No, ma'am. The Hive fired first. Biological projectiles that ate through conventional armor. Energy beams that disrupted shield harmonics. The Coalition had lost dozens of ships to these weapons. Human shields flickered and failed exactly as expected. But beneath the shields, thick armor plating absorbed the damage. Holes appeared in hulls. Atmosphere vented into space, but the ships kept coming. Return fire. All batteries. The human fleet opened up. Missiles streaked through the void, each one carrying enough explosive power to crack a small moon. Kinetic rounds traveled at relativistic speeds, hitting with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. Energy beams that did not disrupt shields, but simply melted through them with sustained fire. Hive ships died. Not many. Not enough. But they died. The two fleets collided like opposing weather systems. At ranges where most species try to maintain safe distance, human ships pushed closer, into knife-fighting range, into ramming range. Pell watched a human cruiser take catastrophic damage to its engines. Dead in space, surrounded by high vessels that moved in for the kill. The cruiser rotated on its axis, bringing its remaining weapons to bear. It fired everything at once. 3 Hive ships exploded. Then the cruiser detonated its own reactor. The blast took out 7 more Hive vessels. Hammerfall is down, the tactical officer reported. 800 souls. Reeves closed her eyes for a moment. One moment of grief. Then she opened them and continued commanding her ship. Pell accessed the fleet communications network. Across every channel, human voices coordinated attacks with mechanical precision. No panique. No fear. Just professionals doing lethal mathematics. Delta 3, this is Delta 7. I have firing solution on the carrier group, bearing 270. Requesting missile support. Delta 7, Delta 3 confirms. Firing in 3, 2 mark. Missiles converge from multiple ships, overwhelming Hive defensive systems. The carrier exploded, taking its escort vessels with it. But the Hive kept coming. They adapted. They learned. Energy weapons became less effective. Kinetic rounds were intercepted. Shield frequencies were analyzed and countered. They're learning our patterns, the tactical officer said. Then we change patterns, Reeves replied. Execute boarding protocol 7. Pell's translator struggled with the concept. Boarding? You intend to board Hive vessels. We intend to kill them from the inside. Transport pods launch from the Defiant and every other human ship. Heavily armored, filled with Marines wearing combat suits that looked like mechanized nightmares. They crashed into Hive vessels, breached hulls, and disappeared inside. Pell accessed the combat footage from Marine helmet cameras. What he saw would haunt his rest cycles forever. Inside the Hive ships, Marines fought in zero gravity against creatures designed for killing. The Hive spawned defenders, biological weapons with claws and acid and teeth. The Marines met them with automatic weapons, grenades, and flamethrowers. In a spaceship, where fire consumed oxygen and created toxic smoke. Insane, but effective. The Hive creatures burned. The Marines advanced through corridors that were never meant for their species, fighting in conditions that would kill most civilized beings. Pell watched a Marine get struck by Hive acid. It ate through her suit. She should have retreated. Instead, she armed a grenade, rushed forward, and detonated it in the middle of a Hive cluster. Another Marine lost his weapon. He drew a knife and continued fighting. A knife. Against biological horrors that massed 3 times his weight, they died. Many died, but they never stopped. Every fallen Marine was replaced by another who stepped over their body and kept pushing forward. Human ships detonated inside Hive carriers. Self-destruct sequences executed by crews who stayed behind to ensure the destruction of enemy assets. Pell watched crew members volunteer for these missions. Watched them say goodbye to friends. Watched them do it anyway. The battle lasted 7 hours. When it finally ended, the Hive withdrew. Not defeated, not destroyed, but damaged enough that they broke off their attack. Tethys Prime was saved. The cost was devastating. 8 human ships destroyed. For more crippled beyond immediate repair. Casualty reports came in slowly. 6,000 dead. 9,000 wounded. 40% of a human force. The coalition fleet had lost only 2 ships by comparison. The humans had absorbed the violence meant for everyone. Pell floated in the medical bay, watching human doctors work on the wounded. They moved with practiced efficiency, performing surgeries that seemed impossible, repairing damage that should have been fatal, saving soldiers who should have died. That a Marine lay on a nearby table, missing his left arm below the elbow. He was conscious, talking to the medic, joking about getting a cool robot arm as replacement. Does it hurt? Pell asked through his translator. The Marine looked at him. Yeah, hurts like hell. Why do you joke about it? Because if I do not laugh, I will scream. And screaming does not help anyone. Reeves found Pell later, standing in the observation deck. She looked exhausted. Her uniform was stained with things Pell did not want to identify. 6,000, Pell said. You lost 6,000 people. Yes. How do you bear it? Reeves looked out at the stars. At Tethys Prime, still intact, still inhabited. 2 million souls who would see tomorrow because 6,000 gave their todays. We bear it because we must, she said. Because if we do not fight, they die anyway. At least this way, they die for something. They die so others can live. Is that enough? Pell asked. Is that worth the cost? Reeves turned to face him. Her eyes were old despite her young face. You tell me, Pell. Is Tethys Prime worth 6,000 lives? Pell thought about the colony below. The families. The children. The future that still existed because humans bled for it. Yes, he whispered. Then it is worth it. The footage of the battle reached Meridian Cross within hours. Within days, it spread across the entire galaxy. Pell watched the reactions. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive savages suddenly reconsidered. The deathworlders were real. They were capable. They were willing. And they did not quit. YSS requested transfer to a human unit. He wanted to learn their methods, wanted to understand their mindset. Other rash warriors followed, then Murini engineers, then Vorentine strategists. Humanity was teaching the galaxy a lesson it had forgotten. Sometimes survival required sacrifice. Sometimes victory required paying the cost. Sometimes the only way forward was through blood and fire. The Hive had taken Tethys Prime in their projections. They had calculated coalition response. They had planned for traditional defensive warfare. They had not planned for spite made manifest, for stubbornness armed with nuclear weapons, for a species that looked at impossible odds and attacked anyway. Pell updated his historical record. He titled this section, "The Day the Rumors Became Real." Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same. And the Hive had just learned they faced an enemy that refused to be consumed. The war was far from over. But for the first time, victory seemed possible, because humanity had shown everyone something precious, something powerful: hope. The wounded arrived at Meridian Cross in waves. Medical shuttles from Tethys Prime carried humans who should have been dead, but somehow kept living. Pell watched the station's hospitals overflow, watched alien doctors learn human anatomy through emergency surgery, watched species who had never met humans work desperately to save them. News of the battle spread like radiation. Every inhabited system received footage within days. Pell had edited the material carefully, showing both the horror and the heroism. The galaxy needed to understand what humanity had done. What humanity was. The Galactic Assembly convened for an emergency session. Trell stood at the center podium, his crystalline structure refracting the chamber lights into rainbow patterns. Around him, representatives from hundreds of worlds watched the battle footage in stunned silence. Humanity has proven its commitment, Trell announced. They bled for a world they had never visited, for people they had never met. They asked for nothing in return. They asked for everything, countered a Vorentine elder. They ask us to fight like them, to sacrifice like them, to accept casualties we find unacceptable. They ask us to survive, YSS said, rising from his position. The rash warrior wore bandages across his carapace, wounds received fighting alongside human marines. I have fought beside humans. I have seen them die protecting me. They do not ask us to become them. They ask us to stop dying slowly. The debate raged for hours. Some argued humanity was too violent, too reckless, too dangerous. Others claimed humanity was exactly what the galaxy needed. Finally, a formal vote. The measure passed by significant margin. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition. They would receive access to advanced technology, trade agreements, cultural exchange that in return, they would help coordinate the war effort. Pell watched the proceedings from the observation gallery. Beside him, Captain Reeves attended as the human observer. She had refused medical evacuation, insisting her injuries were minor. Pell had seen the medical report. 3 cracked ribs, second-degree burns, and a concussion. Minor by human standards meant debilitating by any other measure. Your people voted for us, Reeves said quietly. I hope they understand what that means. What does it mean? Pell asked. It means we are all in this together now. Human victories are your victories. Human losses are your losses. When we bleed, you feel it. When you suffer, we respond. That is what alliance means to humans. Over the following weeks, human military advisors deployed across coalition space. They taught courses in aggressive tactics. They ran combat simulations that shocked participants with their brutality and effectiveness. They shared weapons technology and defensive strategies, but they also shared more subtle things. Human medics revolutionized trauma care, bringing techniques developed from centuries of warfare. Human engineers redesigned ship systems with redundancy principles, making vessels harder to kill. Human psychologists taught stress management and unit cohesion. Pell attended a seminar on human military philosophy. The instructor was a scarred veteran named Sergeant Davis who had lost both legs in the battle and now used mechanical replacements. Humans are not the strongest species, Davis explained to an audience of mixed aliens. We are not the fastest or the smartest. Our technology is behind yours by centuries. So why did we win at Tethys Prime? Silence greeted the question. We won because we refused to lose, Davis continued. The Hive calculates odds. They plan. They adapt. But they cannot adapt to soldiers who accept death as an acceptable outcome. You cannot frighten someone who has already made peace with dying. A Murini student raised a tentacle. But fear is survival instinct. How do you function without it? We still feel fear, Davis said. We just do not let it control us. Fear tells you danger exists. Courage tells you to face it anyway. Every human who fought at Tethys Prime was terrified. We just did our jobs despite the fear. The cultural integration accelerated. Human restaurants opened on Meridian Cross, serving food that most species found overwhelming but fascinating. Human music played in recreational areas, the chaotic rhythms slowly gaining appreciation. Human art appeared in galleries, emotional and raw compared to the mathematical precision of galactic aesthetics. YSS completed his transfer to a human marine unit. Pell visited him in the training facility, watching the rash warrior practice combat techniques with human instructors. They teach differently than our warriors, YSS explained during a break. Rash fight with instinct. Humans fight with method. Every movement has purpose. Every action has backup plan. Are you becoming human? Pell asked. YSS clicked his mandibles in amusement. No, I'm becoming better, Rash. Learning from humans makes me more effective, not less myself. The training facility itself revealed human philosophy. They simulated disasters constantly. Ship decompression, reactor failures, chemical leaks, fire in zero gravity. Every possible disaster was practiced until response became automatic. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, explained a human colonel. We train in hell, so battle feels manageable. But not everything humans brought was purely military. Pell observed a human soldier in the station gardens, tending to plants with surprising gentleness. The same hands that had killed hive creatures at Tethys Prime now carefully pruned leaves and checked soil moisture. You are a warrior, Pell said. Why do you garden? The soldier looked up, dirt on her hands. Because I need to remember what we fight for. Beauty, growth, life. It is easy to become only a weapon. Gardening reminds me I am still human. Intelligence reports arrived constantly. The hive was regrouping. They had learned from Tethys Prime. Their tactics were evolving. Next time would be harder. General EC coordinated the defensive strategy with Trell and other coalition commanders. Pell attended the planning sessions, watching humans and aliens work together. The humans pushed for aggressive options. The aliens urged caution. Compromise emerged through debate and calculation. They will hit us harder, EC said, studying the projected attack routes. They know we can hurt them now. They will commit more resources. Can we win again? Asked a Vorentine admiral. If we fight smart. If we use every advantage. If everyone does their part. EC looked around the table. Tethys Prime was won by human sacrifice. The next battle needs to be won by coalition cooperation. We cannot carry the entire war alone. Training intensified across the fleet. Coalition soldiers learned human tactics. Humans learned galactic technology. Mixed units formed, combining species strengths. Rash warriors with human tenacity. Murini engineers with human redundancy thinking. Vorentine strategy with human aggression. Pell documented everything for his historical record. He interviewed survivors from Tethys Prime. He recorded training sessions. He collected personal stories from humans and aliens learning to work together. One interview stood out. A young Vorentine officer who had served on a human ship during the battle. What surprised you most about humans? Pell asked. The officer thought carefully. Their kindness. Everyone expects the violence, the fighting, the sacrifice. But afterward, they mourned their dead. They visited the wounded. They remembered names. Every single name. 6,000 dead. and they knew them all. That is what surprised me. They fight like machines, but grieve like poets. The weeks passed. The fleet rebuilt. New ships arrived from Earth, replacements for those lost. Fresh crews, new soldiers. The humans kept coming, kept reinforcing, kept committing, and the galaxy kept watching. Species that had been neutral began choosing sides. Some joined the coalition, inspired by human example. Others fortified their borders and hoped the war would pass them by. The hive presence grew in the outer systems. Scout reports indicated massive force concentration. The next attack would not target a single world. They were preparing for something bigger. Intelligence determined the target within days. Meridian Cross itself, the heart of the coalition. If it fell, the alliance would collapse. The hive was coming to cut out humanity's new allies in one overwhelming strike. Trell broadcast a warning across all coalition channels. They come for us, for our families, for our future. We have days to prepare, perhaps a week. Use it well. Pell found Reeves in the Strategic Planning Center, reviewing defensive positions with other officers. "Can we hold?" he asked. Reeves looked at him with those predator eyes. "I do not know, but I know we'll try. And I know trying matters more than certainty." Why? Because hope is not about guaranteed victory. Hope is about refusing to surrender even when victory seems impossible. The hive thinks they can break us. Let's prove them wrong. The fleet mobilized. Every available ship, every trained soldier, every weapon that could fire. Meridian Cross prepared for siege, and humanity prepared to show the galaxy what deathworlders did when their allies were threatened. They stood their ground. The hive super swarm materialized at the edge of sensor range like a dark galaxy made physical. Millions of bioships, enough mass to consume a dozen worlds. They moved with terrible purpose toward Meridian Cross, toward the heart of everything the coalition had built. Pell watched from the command center as the defensive fleet took position. 100 coalition vessels, 40 human warships, against millions. The mathematics were clear. They could not win through firepower alone. General EC stood at the strategic display, his expression carved from stone. Around him, commanders from 20 species waited for orders. Human, Vorentine, Rash, Mirini, united by necessity and something deeper. Something humans called brotherhood. They expect us to defend conservatively, EC said, to protect the station and wait for them to attack. We will not give them what they expect. Fleet will advance in 3 waves. Human ships lead. Coalition forces follow. We hit them before they reach Meridian Cross. That is suicide, a Vorentine admiral protested. We will be surrounded. We will be fighting. EC corrected. There is a difference. Captain Reeves activated her communication link from the Defiant. All human vessels acknowledge. We are ready. Across the fleet, other captains confirmed. Coalition commanders hesitated, then agreed. They had seen Tethys Prime. They knew what humans were capable of. More importantly, they trusted them. The fleet surged forward. Human ships formed the spear point, their weapons already charging. Behind them, coalition vessels maintained tight formation. They moved as one entity, a single organism made of metal and will. The hive met them halfway. The void filled with violence. Energy beams cut through space. Missiles created constellations of detonations. Kinetic rounds traveled too fast to see, their impacts marked only by dying ships. The human fleet tore into the hive formations like a blade through flesh. They accepted damage that would cripple coalition vessels and kept fighting. They lost ships, and the survivors compensated, filling gaps, maintaining pressure. Pell watched a human cruiser take a direct hit that destroyed half its structure. The remaining crew sealed bulkheads, rerouted power, and continued firing. They fought until the reactor destabilized, then evacuated at the last possible moment. The ship drifted into a hive cluster and exploded, taking dozens of enemy vessels with it. Coalition ships fought with new ferocity. The rash warriors pushed their vessels into close range, remembering human lessons. The Murini engineers performed impossible repairs under fire. The Vorentine commanders made aggressive decisions that their ancestors would have called reckless. They were learning. They were adapting. They were becoming dangerous, but the Hive adapted too. They surrounded the fleet, cutting off retreat. They focused fire on weakened ships. They spawned new vessels from their carriers faster than the Coalition could destroy them. Station shields failing, reported the tactical officer. Hive boarding pods incoming. The battle came to Meridian Cross itself. Hive creatures crashed through external defenses and breached the hull. Alarms screamed across every level. Civilians fled to shelters while security forces mobilized. Pell found himself in Corridor 7, Area 12, watching automated defenses fail as Hive creatures poured through a breach. Biological nightmares with too many limbs and weapons grown from their own flesh. They killed everything in their path. Then human Marines arrived. They moved in formation, weapons firing in coordinated bursts. They threw grenades that filled corridors with fire. They established defensive positions using their own bodies as shields that a Marine sergeant grabbed Pell and pulled him behind cover. "Stay down. We got this." "Got what?" Pell asked, his translator struggling with terror. "A fight." The sergeant grinned. "Best kind of day." The Marines pushed forward. Pell watched them fight in the tight corridors, using tactics adapted for close quarters. They worked in pairs, covering each other, never leaving anyone exposed. When one fell, another took their place instantly. Across the station, similar battles raged. Human soldiers and Coalition security fought side by side. Species that had been strangers weeks ago now bled together, died together, survived together. In the refugee shelter, a human medic named Sarah worked on wounded civilians. Pell saw her treat a Vorentine child with the same care she would give a human. Saw her use precious supplies on aliens while her own wounds went untreated. "Why?" Pell asked her. "Why help us first?" Sarah looked at him with tired eyes. "Because humans can handle pain. Kids should not have to. Any kids, any species." Outside, the fleet battle reached critical point. Half the Coalition ships were destroyed or disabled. Human losses exceeded 60%. The Hive pressed their advantage, pushing toward the station. Then Admiral Lu Feng executed the final strategy. Every human ship still capable of movement received the same order. Protocol last stand. All vessels execute. The surviving human ships formed a defensive sphere around Meridian Cross. They linked their shields, creating a single massive barrier. Then they poured every bit of power into that shield. Engines, weapons, life support, everything. The shield blazed like a newborn star. Hive weapons struck it and dissipated. Boarding pods burned away. The swarm crashed against the barrier and could not pass. But the strategy had a cost. With no power for weapons, the human ships became stationary targets. With no power for engines, they could not maneuver. They had transformed themselves into fortress walls. Immobile, vulnerable, unbreakable, Coalition vessels rallied behind the human shield. Protected by human sacrifice, they regrouped and counterattacked. They focused fire on Hive command vessels. They coordinated strikes with devastating precision. The tide turned. The Hive coordination faltered. Their formations dissolved into chaos. And chaos meant death against enemies who had learned to fight like humans. The battle lasted 18 hours. When the Hive finally withdrew, the debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers. Both sides had bled. Both sides had suffered. But Meridian Cross still stood. Final casualty reports came slowly. 28 human ships destroyed. 8,000 dead. 15,000 wounded. Coalition losses were similar. Civilian casualties numbered in the thousands. But they had won. Meridian Cross survived. The Coalition held. The Hive learned that this alliance would not break. Pell floated through the damaged corridors, documenting the aftermath. He saw humans and aliens working together to repair the station. He saw species who had feared each other now embracing. He saw children from different worlds playing together in the refugee centers. He found Captain Reeves in the medical bay. She had stayed at her post until the battle ended, then collapsed from exhaustion and blood loss. The doctors said she would recover. General EC addressed the assembly 3 days later. His uniform was burned. His voice was hoarse, but he stood straight. "We have proven something important," he said. "Alone, we all fail. Together, we can face anything. Humanity came to this galaxy as rumor. We leave this battle as brothers and sisters to every species that stood with us." The Assembly voted to formalize the alliance. The United Defense Coalition became permanent. Humanity was granted equal status with founding members. More importantly, humans were granted trust. Pell completed his historical record. He titled it "When Rumors Became Reality: Humanity's Integration into Galactic Society." In his conclusion, he wrote, "Humanity taught us to fight, but they also taught us why we fight. Not for territory or resources, not for ideology or pride. We fight for each other. We fight because some things are worth dying for. We fight because hope requires courage, and courage requires sacrifice." The High believed we would break under pressure. They did not understand that pressure creates bonds, that shared suffering creates family. The humans do not know how to abandon allies. Humanity was a rumor. Then they stood on the front lines and became legend. Now they're simply us, part of something larger, part of something worth defending. YSS found Pell on the observation deck weeks later. The Rash warrior had been promoted to commander, leading mixed human Rash units. "The Hive will come again," YSS said. "Ino, Balropia. Will we win?" Pell looked at the stars, at the fleet being rebuilt, at the species working together, at the future that suddenly seemed possible. "I do not know if we will win," Pell said honestly, "but I know we will fight, and I know that matters." YSS clicked agreement. Humans taught us something valuable. What? That survival is not about being the strongest or the smartest. Survival is about refusing to quit, about standing together when everything says to run, about making the enemy regret ever challenging us. In the refugee center, human and alien children played together. They did not see different species. They saw friends. They saw the future that a Vorentine child asked a human child why humans fought so hard. The human child thought about it. Because we care. And when you care about something, you protect it. No matter what. Simple. True. Human. The galaxy would face the Hive again. Many times. The war was far from over. But something fundamental had changed. The coalition no longer fought to delay defeat. They fought to achieve victory, because humanity had taught them the most important lesson. The most dangerous species in the galaxy was not the one with the best weapons or the strongest ships. That IT was the species that refused to lose. The species that turned sacrifice into strategy. The species that looked at impossible odds and attacked anyway. Humanity had been a rumor whispered in the dark. A ghost story about monsters from a death world. Now, they were family, and family protected each other. The Hive would learn this lesson many times in the years to come. They would learn that they had not invaded a fractured coalition of frightened species. They had united the galaxy against them. And at the front of that unity stood humans, those persistent predators who treated extinction as a personal insult. The rumors were over. The war continued, and humanity stood exactly where they promised they would, on the front lines, with their allies. Forever.